Hello, if you can hear me, welcome to the talk. So this is the talk about working in open source and projects that matter. We're going to talk about knowledge privacy in small companies. Hello, David. Hello, Aaron. So welcome to the talk. This is the talk from XWiki and CryptPad about working in open source and project that matters. We're going to talk about knowledge privacy in small corporations. So we still have a few people logging in. So let's wait 1 or 2 minutes more and then we'll start. As I said, so if you're interested in telling us in the chat what interests you or what are the subjects that interest you the most, knowledge privacy, and then we can maybe focus a bit more on it, like knowledge privacy or open source. We're going to try to talk about all these, and we have plenty of time. Okay, Diana, we start? Sounds good? Yes, let's go. Okay, so hello everybody. We're going to talk about open source, knowledge privacy in small corporations. And so first, who am I? I'm Ludovic Dubost. I'm the CEO of XWiki. I'm the creator of the open source software XWiki. And so XWiki is a collaboration software. It's about organizing your information. So it's an open source collaboration software. It's been around for 17 years now. It's based on the wiki principle that you all know as Wikipedia. It allows to help organize the information in many different ways. It's a bit more than just a simple wiki. You can do structured data in it. You can develop some applications. It's a pretty complete software. And our company also works on CryptPad, a privacy-preserving collaboration platform. So it's an end-to-end encrypted Google Docs or Office 365 equivalent. You can edit documents, share them with other people, all with end-to-end cryptography, not only on the documents, but also on the sharing mechanisms, the folders, drives, and so on. Our company, XWiki, has done 17 years of open source. So we've been open source from the beginning of the company. We have actually 40 employees. This is a typo. We're hiring right now, so we'll be a bit more. And we're a remote first company. We didn't have an office in Paris for 6 months as we gave it away, and we took a smaller office. And a lot of our employees work remotely. We're a company that allows remote work. We have employees in Germany too. We have an employee in India, and we have employees in at least 4 cities or 5 cities in France. And our employees in Romania can also do remote work. We're a company that is member of Euclidia, of open source clusters also in France and in Europe. Euclidia is a cluster that is promoting European technology in the cloud sector. So really technology that comes from Europe. And so we're involved in digital sovereignty. We believe at XWiki that open source is very important for digital sovereignty. And so we're involved in collaborating with other open source companies so that we can all propose open source collaboration tools that we can all own. And we'll talk about that again. So first, it's a talk that is about why to do things. And I'd like to say that you can always call bullshit on me. This is what we believe, what I believe. I can be over-representing what we do as ultimately positive, and maybe it's not. This is actually a button that exists at XWiki. We have a button like that, and we're trying to give the opportunity to everybody in the company to say when we're not talking right. So do it also, or think it. We're doing our best to do what we believe in and believe what we do. And the first non-bullshit that I will say is that open source is easy. Open source is not easy. It's a challenging sector. It's a lot of effort. This little drawing shows it a bit all. Is like who wants to use open source software? Everybody is ready to use open source software. And who wants to participate to open source? That is much more complicated. Who wants to fund open source? That's much more complicated also. So this talk is about being happy. So this is the Maslow Pyramid, and so the way I see work. So I'm a person that is more than 50 years old. I've worked at Netscape in a large American company. I've worked in a French startup that almost was a unicorn and then was sold for much less money. And then I started working on XWiki and in open source. And over time, as I was doing that, things were starting to unfold a bit about what it means to do something that you believe in and that you like. And so the Maslow Pyramid is about needs that human beings have, and so what the theory says here is human beings all go through having needs with priorities. The lower ones have higher priority. They're not one after the other. They're more like priorities, but they all come in at a certain point. And so by showing the Maslow Pyramid, I was trying to show first that when you work in IT, your basic needs are pretty much achieved. You have a good salary. You're more in the upper side of the society in terms of financial assets. And then it's about, okay, what are the other needs and how what we do helps solve more of these needs. And so the belonging and love needs, we can't do everything. Of course, a company won't do everything about this. But working in a small company and being in a small team is something that is interesting there. Working in open source also is something that is interesting. And open source, working on projects that matter, that you feel are important, is something that helps, of course, the esteem. And then it's about autonomy, and this is something that we're trying to give in a small company, trying to give autonomy to people in their work. And so this talk is about, okay, how do these things help in in achieving more of these aspects and out being happy, both at work and in your life. And so if we look at the practical aspect, so why actually work in open source? So so the first thing when it comes to work in open source is that, and this is realizing many people have, is that proprietary software tends to lock people in a cage. And that's not something that's nice as a user. We have seen and we see that a lot of the business models of proprietary company is about trying to get people, and once you get them, trying to really keep them, and be a large like increase the money. And a lot of the startups are about this: give a lot at the beginning, and then acquire users and customers, and then constrain them. And so open source, when you do that as a provider, it can be good for your revenues. It doesn't feel completely good from a way of doing business thing, a way of doing business. So open source is working a bit the other way around, and you're not forcing people to be customers. They have this freedom to decide to move away at some point, and not to accept the conditions that you're proposing. It's not completely exempt of lock-in in technology, but open source doesn't have that. Second big reason why working on open source is important is that these private monopolies working off proprietary software, from my point of view, are not a good thing. And we have a lot of press about it around the domination of the GAFAMs, of the big tech, where basically they have a lot of power and they can decide a lot of things. They can enter in bundling strategy to extend their domination. They can kill almost any company at a time. They can buy it out. And in the end, we don't have a lot of control, and we cannot decide what happens. So we'll see some examples of where, for example, in the privacy area, where this monopoly approach is something that we don't control anymore. Another aspect of working in open source is European and individual sovereignty. So I like to point out both. So we're a French company, so when we're in France, we talk about national digital sovereignty, and you have a lot of companies proposing that we invest in national software in order to control national software. So I prefer to talk about European sovereignty, and as a way also to allow national sovereignty. So what I find really interesting with open source as a way to achieve digital sovereignty is that if European companies all work together around open source, each country can actually be sovereign without impacting the sovereignty of the other country. So if we invest in open source technology in France, then German nationals can also use that open source work and build up their own autonomy around that open source software. And in the end, we can collaborate on sovereignty and also be globally more sovereign at the European level. Another aspect that I find very important, and this is sometimes overlooked in the sovereignty aspect, is that, well, sovereignty at the government level is a good thing. It's an important thing that our government has controlled the sovereignty of the country, but it's the government is also a very large entity that has a lot of control on people, and it's also very interesting to have sovereignty at the individual level or small company level, and open source helps potentially smaller company be more independent, individuals be independent. So if individuals want to set up collaboration software, they should be able to do it, and it shouldn't be under the control of the private company and how they decide to deliver it. So open source, on-premise open source software is something that's important if we're ever interested in the sovereignty of individuals when it comes to technology. And so, and as a user of technology, over the time, we've seen that the move to cloud has progressively make us lose more and more control. And this is all about control, and open source, from my point of view, is something that I believe is very important in order to regain a bit of that control. Another aspect of why open source is also important, and this is one of the reasons I like to go towards open source, is as a technologist, is not let my employer bury my code. I worked in a very large startup before creating XWiki, and when I did this, I created a lot of technology that I was very proud of. And creating this technology as proprietary code for that company made me a good salary. But at the end, when the company got bought and half of what we had built was scrapped away by the buying company because it was not that interesting, it made me feel bad. And open source is something that okay, yes, your code can become irrelevant, but it's not going to be decided by a small list of individuals that decide if ever it should survive or not. So this is something that's important for me as a user, that allowed me to go in open source, and I hope that this is something important that we give to our employees that produce open source code, is that they can be sure that it's not going to be individual that completely decide to scrap what they did. Another thing, so open source is about sharing. It's about also allowing anybody, a lot of people, to use what you do. So it's about not limiting the usage of what we do, and this is something that on my side made me want to go for open source, and is that I was not sure as a creator of a company, or I knew it would be very difficult to bring our company to all countries in the world, and so by doing it as open source, it allows XWiki to go in country where we would not go, and so that thing for me is something that's important. Another aspect is that it allows small groups to do big things. If we look at almost all major open source projects, and I'm not talking about XWiki here. Let's talk about. We can talk about VLC, or we can talk about Jitsi. It's always a small group of people that created this software, and the reach of this software is international, is global. And so a small group of people can really initiate something that becomes really big, and this is something that open source technology allowed to do. So of course, proprietary technology also allow that to happen, but they do it in only one way. You have to build a very large company, and you have to build a lot of employees around the world, a whole structure of management, and you have to build a society. And so with open source, you can let it happen, and a small group of people can still be there, involved, because it's an open involvement approach, involved in the project, and try to continue to make it big. And the last reason I would like to share about why I think it's a good idea to work in open source is that, well, because even if it's not easy every day and it's not simple to launch an open source project, it is possible. And there are many companies that are producing a significant amount of open source, even companies that do 100% open source, like our company is doing, and they manage to make a living out of it. And it might not make you a billionaire, but it allows you to live very, very okay, and continue to produce open technology that is open for any other people in the world, any other people, companies, or users, or associations, and so on. And so it's a big reason, the fact that it actually works to work in open source. So let's move on a bit. Why at XWiki we work in knowledge, and why we're interested in working in knowledge. So one big thing is that when I created XWiki, it felt I wanted to do something that's useful, and so I looked a bit at, okay, what are people interested in, and that I was using before. I was using task tracking tools. I was using wikis in my team, and I loved how wikis was taken by the users in the group, and people could empower themselves with the wiki, so they could just decide to use it and push it to other people. They could create content. It was open for editing. There was not a lot of workflows and constraints in the way the knowledge sharing would happen. And so I decided to go with wikis. And now what is interesting with wikis is what they're used for is that not only they can be used on very important projects that are a big progress for society, like Wikipedia does, but they can be used also inside companies. And inside companies, very often it's about, okay, why do you need collaboration tools? And the answer number one is, well, we need collaboration tools because we need to be more efficient. What does it mean to be more efficient? Is that we do more with the same amount of money. We do, and often same amount of money means the number of people in the company. It's not very rewarding to build technology tools which would have the only goals to reduce the number of employees that the company would have. It's rewarding to do tools that allow to do more and allow to do more, but it's even more rewarding to do tools that allow people to become more, to train themselves more, to become more intelligent. And this is what we learned a bit with working with wikis, is that inside companies, it was rewarding to build tools that would allow all individuals in a company to benefit from it, and not only the company itself to benefit from it. It's also very rewarding, of course, to have public projects that are useful for society and often done by organizations that have almost no money to do it. At XWiki, for example, we have there is a project from an association of parents with kids with a rare disease that are sharing information through a wiki and through tools like that in order to help each other around the world. And so rare diseases are often so rare that you have nobody around you physically that experience this thing, and the internet is almost the only way to get in touch with people that live the same difficulty that you're living. These type of projects are, of course, rewarding, or projects of encyclopedia, like what we're doing with the history of Switzerland, or the knowledge sharing tools we do for the French public service, which is giving information for all the workers in the public service so that they can also evolve their career. So all these projects around knowledge are very rewarding, and they're a very big reason why working around the notion of knowledge is interesting. Another item I wanna talk to is why work in a small company. So as a small company, so this is a bit off topic about project that matters, but it is important when it comes to choosing what to do with work. So well, you do have the feeling of being part of the team. It's of course a bit harder in COVID times. We have used to do a physical seminar with our team in France and Romania every year, and we haven't been able to do that since COVID. We've done partial seminars in each country. And so, but it is an important part, being part of a team. We try to continue to be as much a team as we can be, even if we're a bit far apart and we're more remote. Another aspect is work from home or not. We give a lot of freedom in our company, in a small company. So not all small companies will give you that, but at least this is something you can discuss. And what's really important in a small company is that you that a lot of time, if things work out, then it's okay to do it. So we try to have as much as possible a culture of giving freedom to people, and if they find a way to make things work, then we'll give them this freedom. It's not always easy. It's not simple to put in place, because of course in a small company there are also a lot of constraints that are not necessarily coming from what we want to do, but what we can do. So it's a more human-centric way of seeing what the company is. Another aspect that we're trying to do in our small company is transparency, and it's talking and explaining as much as we can what we're doing. So at XWiki, we have a bi-yearly presentation of the financials of the company, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible when it goes well and when it's harder. And we're trying to integrate the employees as much as we can in the decisions that we're making. Again, this is not easy. We still have a management and a CODIR. We're not a completely free company where everybody can decide what it wants. We're not doing referendum on every decision that we take, but we're trying to have processes to listen as much as possible to employees and the team members on how they feel about our decision. Another aspect is we've created a squad organization to try to make sub teams that can take as much decision as they can on their side. So I'll go to why it's interesting to work in privacy. So when it comes to work in privacy, so first, why did we go as a company work in privacy when we were working in freeing knowledge? You could say it's completely antinomic. On one side, we make a software which allows people to share information and knowledge. And on the other side, we're making a software that is putting locks on the data in order for this data not to be leaked. Well, so when we actually came into building CryptPad, not because we thought because this is something that we wanted absolutely to do, is we did some research on real-time collaboration, and we realized that we were having an algorithm that allowed to add encryption to it. And at that point, we realized that we could do something that was not done before, is editing documents with encryption in real time, and that this was actually an interesting innovation. So we decided to put this innovation as a test, as a prototype on the internet. And then we decided to improve it a bit more as a way to use it every day. We started using it ourselves when it came to communicate with our clients. And then we presented it at a contest in Europe, and we got a prize for it. And we realized that this was a very interesting field, and that this deserved a separate software from what we're doing at XWiki that would be fully focused on privacy. Because there is data that deserves to be protected. On one side, there is information that deserves to be shared as much as possible, but on the other side, there is data that deserves to be protected. And we believe that part of this data is our documents, what we write, the information that we communicate with our friends, with our partners, and that this is actually not the case on the internet. We've seen some very big problems with advertisement and advertisement data that leaks, and with massive Facebook data that leaks, and that this constant online surveillance is creating democracy problem. We're also seeing that cybersecurity is becoming a major problem for companies. When it comes, they're putting all their software on the cloud, and then this software has the data visible by the cloud partners, and then at some point this data gets hacked, and there's a lot of data that is leaking and that should not be leaking, including personal data of people. of individuals that these companies are working with. And while there is a lot of work into trying to make a lot of surveillance tools again to protect our computers, to protect our servers, to put firewalls that will detect intrusions and so on, all these software are being added. There is not that much work about making the software that we use actually better security tools. Security is not only about knowing that you're being hacked, for example, or about preventing of being hacked, but it's maybe also about having tools that are not hackable as much. And this is what we're trying to build with ScriptPad and trying to show that we can build. We're part of a set of tools that add end-to-end encryption to a lot of things. So chat, end-to-end encryption, like Signal or Matrix, video conference end-to-end encryption, which start to exist, but not that much. Email end-to-end encryption to protect our mailbox, which contains so much information about our lives, but our mailboxes are somewhere on the in the internet, and we hope they're protected well. And about any tool that allow to minimize the data being leaked. This is what we're trying to do with ScriptPad. And so privacy is a breakthrough field because there are difficulties in making tools that are end-to-end encrypting. There are a lot of challenging technical difficulties, and there's also a lot of challenges on the UI part because people are not that they're aware that there is a problem of surveillance online, but they have a hard time to understand exactly when there are problems. And they also have a hard time using a tool that is complicated. And so they tend to always favor the most simple tool, the most easy to use tool. And adding protection and adding encryption is not something that's easy. And that is something that we're trying to do with ScriptPad, and that we believe is necessary at this point, is to make it pleasant for people to use a tool that also protects their data. We believe privacy is a very important field, and that we need to work more in this area. There are many areas in privacy that can be improved, and it's an important subject for the technology industry in the years to come. Besides protecting existing tools that are not taking care well of privacy. That's about it. So I talked only 30 minutes. I wanted to leave also a lot of space for questions. So if you have questions, I would be happy to take them. So you can put questions in the chat. And I see there is one question. I will take it. It's a bit less. It's more related about what we do at XWiki than about the principles of what we do. So the first question is: Can Git be integrated with XWiki? So I suppose you are referring to having XWiki store its data in Git. And that is not something we can fully do because XWiki has a lot of very complex data sets, that search and things. And so we store our data in a database. We store our data in search engines using the Solar technology. And Git is not having everything that we would need to store everything, or at least not to store it in a way that you would be able to use it on the other side and modify it in Git. We do have, however, integrations with Git, actually with GitHub and GitLab. That's the type of integration we do. We do have APIs to work with Git in XWiki. So we use, for example, integration with GitLab or GitHub in order to be able to take code that we write in XWiki and commit it directly in a GitHub or GitLab project. So not for the whole data, but just for extensions or code that we write or configuration that we do in XWiki. And we also use integrations with GitHub and GitLab to display issues, tasks from GitHub or GitLab, like we do with Jira. So we have integrations with Git like that, but I don't think this was exactly the question, the type of integration you were looking for. I think you were looking for more for storage. This is not something that we directly have. I don't know if there are other questions. Do not hesitate to come in and bring up some questions. No, nobody wants to try a question, please. So that's actually an interesting question. What operating systems are we working with? So all our servers are Linux, mostly Debian. That is our standardization for the server side. For the desktop side, we give the freedom to people to decide what operating system they want to use at the company. So anybody can decide if you want to work on Windows, if you want to work on Linux, you can actually choose your Linux. If you want to work on a Mac, you choose what you want to work with. We're trying to make all our tools compatible with any OSs. So we're trying as a company to be as much open standard as open source as we can. We're not fully, but we're trying to make a work environment that is open and not constrained by a specific technology. And especially using as much open source as we can. Other questions? Yes, so we have a booth where you can come and have also a conversation with us or private conversation with us. Do not hesitate to come talk to us. I don't know. I saw that you have several dev jobs. I would like to know the purpose of the job. Is developing your own project like Cripad or providing business solutions to other companies, please? So what are the type of jobs that we propose? So at XWiki currently, we already build XWiki in Cripad. That's already a lot of work. And when we build a project, an open source project, our goal is to make it sustainable. That means that we need to find a way to pay for it. And this is part of the hard work of doing open source. We can't automatically do that with any new projects. So what we're trying to do is that we're first trying to make our own projects sustainable. XWiki has been sustainable now for 17 years. Cripad is now sustainable for 5 years, a couple years with research projects, the last few years with some revenue coming from users, donations, and some revenue coming from European projects that we candidate to. So we're finding some research money to complete the funding of Cripad. We have never hired a person directly to do something completely new. Usually when we do have new things that can be done as part of research projects that we participate to. So we're trying to innovate first as extensions to the current tools that we do. And then if we see some innovations that could be outside, we don't necessarily exclude them. We will try to do them with funded projects first. And then if we find it interesting, then we are looking into ways to make it sustainable. In terms of what the jobs that we propose today, especially for PhDs, is that we'd love to have PhDs join both the Cripad team and XWiki core team. We have a lot of R&D to do that extend XWiki or that improve XWiki. We have a lot of R&D to do on Cripad. there is a good news for PhDs is that in France we have specific financial help for hiring people that just got their PhD. And so it's a very favorable situation for us to hire a person that just got its PhD. And so we're very encouraged to find people in that profile, and so to have them join the R&D of our team. We're also hiring people on the business sides, commercializing. So, for example, for CryptPad, we're interested into developing enterprise offer for CryptPad to increase its sustainability and find more regular revenue coming from large companies to help continue fund it. There are lots of we're interested in funding in funding research on cryptography. There is a lot of stuff that is interested to do. What Anton said about audited, this is something we'd like to try to fund also and work on testing the security of our tool. So there's a lot of things to do, both on the R&D side and on the commercialization side. Diana is trying to have as many of our offers. We also have things on sysadmin, DevOps for the company. So I mean, reach out, tell us. I'm always open to listen to what people would like to do. If you have your own projects, why not tell us? But I don't know. I have to check if it makes any sense for us. So please reach out. Email address to join us is jobs@xwiki.com. If you want to write me personally, it's ludovic@xwiki.com. You can always write me personally. I'm always happy to listen to people. So jobs@xwiki.com, or go to the xwiki.com website. You have the jobs area. So on the cryptography, by the way, for CryptPad, it's only a team of 3 today, so there is still a lot of room to take. To do a lot of things. So come and reach out. We're going to hire. We also need to make it sustainable, so we need to look at how it fits in the future of that team. Thank you, David, for the answer to Anton. And we're also looking in ways to make it more formal. There's actually going to be a bug bounty for CryptPad soon with a partnership. We cannot really announce it now, but that's going to be interesting. We're also looking in ways to have maybe certification at some point for CryptPad. France is giving some certifications for security tools, but it has a cost, so we have to see how exactly we can make it work. But we're definitely interested in people auditing this work, and we're also interested in how we can find how we can test its security more on our side. So these are areas that we would like to work on in the future. Other questions? Do not hesitate. If you want more about things at XWiki. So, as I said, the CryptPad team is only 3 people. We're 40 people, but we have a lot of engineers. We have people doing service on XWiki. We have people doing R&D on XWiki. So we have a lot of different areas also in the company trying to make open source work. Theo, I see you're from Université Libre de Bruxelles. Thank you for ULB to organize the FOSDEM conference, which we try to be there every year. We haven't been because of COVID recently, and I hope we'll be able to come back to Brussels soon. But we've been there multiple years talking about XWiki CryptPad and having stands there at the FOSDEM event. We're organizing also the collaboration dev room in the remote FOSDEM that happened this year again. So we have a day on collaboration software that we co-organize with Nextcloud and with XWiki and any other participants that are interested in. I suppose you're talking about mobile apps. So we're trying to, at this point, we didn't want to make an app because of also dependencies on the app system. And so we're making a progressive web app of CryptPad, trying to optimize it for mobile. We can do definitely more work in this area. This is an area we'd like to improve. It's not so easy because we're quite demanding on the browser. For example, on iPhone, you're not allowed to have another browser than Safari, at least under the hood of the different browsers. And so we're limited also by technology aspects and resource aspect on the phone. So, but this is an area we're trying to make better, continuously trying to improve the performance. Editing tools on mobile are also not easy. But we don't have an app, and at this point we don't want to have an app. But you can add CryptPad as a progressive web app on your phone. Any other questions? If people are interested to know more about the software themselves, I can also continue to answer questions about that or give an overview of the software itself. If you want to try CryptPad, you just go to CryptPad FR and you can actually use it for free. This presentation was written in CryptPad in the PowerPoint module that is not yet available to everybody, only to subscribers because it's beta. But it's built with an Office compatible tool. So CryptPad has full Office or at least format compatibility with Office. You can import XLS, DocX, PPTX inside CryptPad. There is also a Kanban, a whiteboard, an HTML WYSIWYG. So there is a lot of things. It's not OpenOffice. It's based on OnlyOffice. The reason is OnlyOffice is a technology written in JavaScript. So we have integrated code from OnlyOffice. So we are reusing other open source code. Thank you, OnlyOffice, for the work done on open source. This is showing the power of open source. So we integrated OnlyOffice code. We could not integrate LibreOffice or OpenOffice because this code is written in C, and we cannot put it on the browser. It would be much more complicated and memory hungry. It doesn't work today. There is no system that can do that at this point. So we're integrating OnlyOffice, but OnlyOffice has a good level of compatibility. It supports quite a lot of features of Office, whether it is for Word, for Excel. There is a lot of nice features that are supported, and we can, in particular, import-export. It was actually a European-funded project to export to code the export for OnlyOffice. And for those that are interested in the technology side, we have actually ported C code using WebAssembly to make to make Excel and PowerPoint and Word import export, and also PDF exports from OnlyOffice, all client side, without ever sending any data to a server. And we have done a port of the OnlyOffice C module to WebAssembly to make this happen. And so we also, from time to time, we're integrating technology using WebAssembly in CryptPad when this is something that is useful for preserving privacy. So we thank Europe for the funding. I can actually take the opportunity here to thank NLNet, NGI, and the European community for the funding we got for CryptPad. CryptPad would not be where it is today without it. I thank also the funding for XWiki. We got funding in the past for XWiki. And of course, this public funding is very important in the sustainability today that we have at XWiki and CryptPad, and the ability that we have to build open source. Yes, David also pointed xwiki.com. It's a website where you can see what we do about XWiki. You can also check xwiki.org or cryptpad.org. These are websites that present the technology on xwiki.org. You can download XWiki. In terms of technology, XWiki is built in Java. CryptPad is built in Node.js and JavaScript. So CryptPad is really a very big JavaScript tool. A lot of things is happening in JavaScript because of the end-to-end encryption. In XWiki, we have Java, HTML, JavaScript. So if you're interested in all these technologies, you can also reach out to us. So I hope you all had a good day, and you're having a good day on this inter-university PhD job fair. And thank you for participating. And I hope this was a nice talk. I'm still available if you have any questions. Thank you. Actually, this is the first time we do this talk about working in open source. I have to say it's not easy to know exactly how to organize it and how to present this aspect. I hope it was nice. It was it gave a little bit of insight of the life of a small company working in this area. If you ever think in working in open source, even if it's not at XWiki or CryptPad, go ahead, try it. It's rewarding. It's interesting. If you need counseling or advice, you can reach out to me personally. I'm always happy to give advice to people, especially for open source, open standard projects. So do reach out to me if you have your own project. I will be happy to give you my opinion on your project as nicely as I can. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. Not easy to do a remote HR talk. It's always nice to talk physically to people in these type of fairs, and we hope we can participate to some physical events in the future. Thank you, everybody.